Welcome back to the Adaptive Journey podcast. I'm Albert Wolfe, executive coach and writer based in Guangzhou, China.
And I'm JD Whitney, executive coach and based in Los Angeles, California.
Yep. And today we're talking about our performance leadership model, EMMA, E-M-M-A. And we're just going to give a brief overview of it and a kind of a fun analogy for what even is it. We were really surprised that this analogy resonated with so many people because we say performance leadership is kind of like conducting an orchestra. And we recognize that there are very few people who have actually done that. But somehow, we kind of were worried, like maybe we shouldn't say that because nobody's going to get it. Somehow everybody's really interested in that analogy, which surprised us. So why do you think, maybe that's the first question for you, JD, is why do you think people are into that?
So first, a little bit of interesting background on a personal level is that Albert and I are both musicians. And so this is a big part of our story. So it's something that resonates deeply with us, but as you said, is resonated with other people. So Albert and I have both played in, conducted orchestras ourselves, which is a funny thing for an executive leadership coach to have in their bag. But if you ever have a pocket full of violin players and want to get something going, we're your people as well.
I
Oh,
think let's just double click on that. I think you're our only coach. We work with many coaches around the world, yeah, at Adaptive Leaders. I think you're our only one with an official degree in music, though.
that may be true.
Yeah.
May be true. Yeah, my undergrad was in music education. Absolutely.
So
And
JD is a very high level musician. Very very good conductor. I think mostly choral. Was that most of your
mm,
conducting work? Chorus.
yes. And this and
People
so
singing together.
before people click off the podcast, I want to just put something in your head as a leader, whoever you're looking out at today. One of the things that we're doing often when we're coaching is helping people change their perspective. Just move to a different part of the room. Like if there's a challenge or there's an issue that you're facing, move to a different part of the room. Move 3 steps to the left. Take a walk and look at it from the top of a hill. And again, this is metaphorically speaking. And so how we practically do that a lot is to tap into clients' experience, their story, their previous things. I remember working with the head of a nonprofit organization, very well known in its space, significant operations, very complicated, and his board was misbehaving. And he was just like, "I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do." And so I'm not. This is diagonal from our conversation, but just an illustration. This person was formerly an ER doctor. And there was all this hesitance coming out with managing this misbehaving board. And I said, "Can you tell me a little bit about what it was like working in the ER?" And he transformed.
Yeah.
And then we were able to draw that transformation into the relationship with the board. Huge, huge positive results. And all we did was say, let's look from a different angle. For me, I started out my first day as a just recently graduated student. I wasn't even done with my student teaching yet. I got hired before that. 575 7th and 8th grade kids in a portable for choir and no piano and nothing on the floor. No seats, no risers. And that was my day one introduction to professional life.
You
And
mean, wait a minute, we're all 500 were in the same room?
no, we had they came over 6 periods, and actually it's
Okay,
more
okay.
complicated even than that.
Okay.
It's one of the most complicated setups ever. But one of the things that really taught me, if you think that it is difficult leading adults, try leading 7th and 8th graders. They're out of their minds, and the amount of leadership skill that you develop. PE teachers and like band and choir teachers who have very large classes. One of the things they just have to specialize in: how do I get this person on board? How do I get this person to go along with me? So anyway, I just want to just connect that for our people who are listening to know We're not just going on some music rant that is unrelated to you. There's something in this conversation that will help you stand in a different perspective, looking at the challenges that you're facing in your leadership and in your work. So I
Yeah.
just want to provide that context for us.
Well, and you've already done it. I mean, we have to eventually get to our stated topic for the day, but JD's already
Oh, why
given.
would we do that, Albert?
Yeah.
No, it's good. We absolutely.
we we do plan these topics, just so you know. JD's already given us really great practical application, though, before we even double click on our analogy, which is, what is your analogy? What are you highly competent, skilled, or experienced in that's maybe not what you're doing right now? And put yourself in that mode for a minute. Like, if you were an ER doctor, if you were a junior
PE
high,
teacher. Yeah.
yeah, PE teacher, if you used to work in a higher pressure job, a lower pressure job, all of this can be valuable to you because you have some sort of mental silo where those skills and that experience and
Mm,
that person that I was doesn't transfer. And we're just challenging that assumption today and saying, actually, probably does, at least something.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So
I
that's great.
so going to the trained musician thing, I think in my experience, I've been a performer. I've been the person in the choir. I've been the person in the orchestra. I've been in, modern, like either pop or rock bands. And as you're performing in these contexts, sometimes you're just the player. And then sometimes you're the section leader or you're the music director. And then other times you're the producer or you're the conductor. So to go with an orchestra analogy and just keep it simple, sometimes you're just playing the trumpet or the tuba in my case. Sometimes you're the section leader where you have leadership responsibility, but you're still expected to play. And then all of a sudden you end up in this different role where you're standing up and conducting a group of people. And each one of these things has a different kind of elevation, leadership elevation, and how you handle the transition between them and functioning in the right way at the right level is supremely important, which is why we think this analogy is so important.
Yeah, and I think the thing that stands out to everybody, whether or not they've played in an ensemble or sung in a choir or conducted, is the conductor up there on the stage. We've all seen him waving his hands around, right? I mean, there's the Boston Pops, there's a very famous, Night at the Proms, all these concerts that get televised. E- Everybody recognize he's the only person not making a sound. He's not supposed to make a sound. I mean, maybe he's, humming along, but that's already such a mindset shift. It
Mm,
reminds me of this guy I know who he had a really great mentor in his factory when he was growing up, and then he became a boss after that. And the mentor gave him one piece of advice, which is like weirdly specific. He said, "Never touch Excel." And it like really shocked this guy because like, well, I'm the manager. I'm going to have to be reviewing things that never touch Excel. That's everybody's job but you. You have to be above that. You have to be talking about it. You have to be asking people questions and challenging their thinking, but you should not get into the weeds. And his sort of symbol for that was touching Microsoft Excel. It's kind of like saying, put your trumpet down. You don't play that anymore. You have a different job now.
absolutely. And I think, you know, the way that you connected that, when all of us, as we came up through the ranks, right? We all have been in that position where we've been an employee and maybe even a junior employee at all of us should have started something like that. And you're looking up at the people that you admire. And so one of the frameworks as you think back on the leaders that you admire that I want to encourage everybody to think about is, what are they not doing?
Yeah.
It's really easy to think about what they are doing, but what are they not doing? And how did that contribute to their success as a leader that you looked up to? And there's probably a very, very long list. And in an orchestra, really, again, I've been one of those people with my hands, more my hands than a baton, but whether it's a baton or just your hands, which is a musical conversation for another day. Uh, but there is something about when that is done well that really frees up everyone else to shine. And there's a huge difference. And you can tell when somebody's really good at that role and when they're not. And it shows up. And they might have the same players. I've heard choirs or orchestras go to a festival, for instance, where there's a number of groups
Yeah.
and they have a director, they have their own director and they play. And then there's an expert conductor who comes up to the front and just works with them for 5 minutes. And sometimes the difference in the result is profound. Now, this person did not sing, this person did not play. This person gave a few instructions
Yeah.
and waved their hands, and magic happened. And that's something for our leaders that are listening. I want to encourage you to think about, what do you need to do? What instructions are necessary? And what things are just going to come through your hands, whatever the version of that is in your job. What's going to come from you not being the player. And to be fair, I played a lot of instruments, so I didn't play any of them tremendously well. And I was never a great singer. I had to make up for that with my musicianship. And so for me, I didn't actually, this is another thing. I didn't have to be a better violin player than the violin player.
Yeah.
It's a different skill.
That's what they're hired for. They're hired to do that work. And I was just thinking that we had this APAC team come through, and they all gathered in Guangzhou, and um, Fortune 500 company, and they had a half a day. They really wanted to kind of change the channel. They were on a 3 day program here, and they wanted to change the channel for a half a day. And I actually tried to line up an orchestra for them to conduct, to take turns conducting.
Hmm.
I actually located the orchestra. It was a small orchestra. I located the musicians. It didn't end up working out. I was so disappointed because it would have been such a cool experience for, I'm assuming, mostly non-musicians, to experience what happens. And your primary tool, JD sort of hinted at it, is communication. It's basically, how do you talk to them? How do you inspire them? I mean, you cannot get into the weeds. You cannot tell them that string sounds a little flat. You need to tune it. You won't know, and they will. They'll know that. So it also requires a bit of trust in your people. So if you're listening to this today, a few reflection questions before we do just one more thing. Um, what should you maybe stop doing? What instrument are you still holding? What Excel are you still tinkering with? Because it's familiar, because you are highly competent in that area. We're not saying you're not, but it's actually slowing down your team. What do you need to stop doing or do less of right now, today? Take inspiration from people that you admire. What did they not do? And the second thing is, recognize where you have an assumption that I should be better at. Just fill in the blank. JD's saying he played tuba. He wasn't the best tuba player. So you somehow put down your assumption, I should be better at tuba. You somehow actually were able to challenge that and say, actually, no, I don't need to focus my energy there.
To be fair, as a conductor, but as a tuba player, I was pretty good. And the
Oh,
bar's pretty low for tuba players, but I was a really good tuba player. Um, they're usually like, yeah, get kicked down from trumpet to baritone and then baritone to tuba, and I came the other way into all of that. But
can I just celebrate just for a moment how funny the word tuba is? It's
it's a
just the
very
best.
funny word. Everything about the tuba is actually pretty funny. I pulled a rabbit out of a tuba. I've uh I've drained a couple of gallons of water for fun out of a tuba. Anyway,
Oh, I
yeah,
I have to just tell one more tuba story very quick. My
please.
dad tells My dad has a doctorate in piano and gave all of his kids the wonderful gift of musicianship. He tells a story of at some university he was at listening to a tuba recital. So this is fairly uncommon to have a tuba solo. And he said the piece was so long, the guy needed like 4, 5 music stands lined up next to each other, and he'd sort of spread the music out so he didn't have a page turn. But because the tuba is so big and you can't really turn your head while playing it, he got to a certain point in the piece and he had to like rotate his entire chair in a single jerking motion, which caused this sort of scraping, like a percussive accompaniment to the tuba music. And it was already such a ridiculous situation. He said that they really had a hard time holding it together, watching a tuba soloist rotate his chair while not breaking stride in the music.
It's not a flute, that's for sure. Oh, yeah, I think it's so important for us as we lead, one, just to take a minute and laugh at the chair movement every once in a while.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, what do you like? What do you need to set down? What do you need to let go of? What do you need to maybe not be the best at? I actually had an HR leader in a roundtable we did this week who was asking about, uh, do we have support for CEOs to become more proficient in finance? And I think it's a very intriguing question. Uh, Because
good.
obviously, we have some things that we would do maybe in-house. There's some things that we would recommend out to obviously like an MBA program or there's other things that are more like specialized on the finance that we don't generally teach people finance. We help people with what they need to overcome. But the question itself is interesting because I think sometimes companies are even looking at leaders and saying, you need to know more about this than the people who are reporting to you. And that's a huge assumption that the
Yeah,
CEO would know more about everything than the people on the executive team. And that puts a tremendous amount of pressure on that individual and potentially can be very distracting from the thing they actually need to do,
yeah,
which is to make sure the best conversation, the best information, and the best arguments are on the table. And then to be the courageous person to step forward and say, I know which way we need to go based on all of your best efforts here today. Um, And I think that's a different perspective than a lot of people have. It's saying, I'm not going to be the best at the violin. I might not even. Now, in music education, we did learn the fundamentals of these instruments. That's important. You can't be totally clueless and unable to read a balance sheet like at any level, um, and probably be a great CEO. But you certainly don't need to understand everything on that balance sheet, I would say, to be a great CEO. You need to have a CFO who understands those things and can give you good advice based on all those numbers. Balance sheet, somebody might call me on that and say it's a balance sheet. They should know.
yeah.
Um, but I think depending on the complexity of the balance sheet and what information you're looking for and the kind of decisions you're making, I would rather have a CEO who listens well, creates good conversation, gets the best out of his people, and then makes a quality decision and has the courage to pursue it than somebody who uh, can do the CFO's job and doesn't do those other things.
And that's what we talk about with this idea of the 3C adaptivity, or sometimes called purposeful adaptivity, is you need your curiosity, courage, and care running at a different level to be able to stay adaptive because you will default to the area that you are most comfortable in. You will
Mm,
if you're a finance guy and you've been promoted to CEO, you're going to take that finance lens. If you're a technical expert, technical lady, and you've been promoted to CEO, you're going to go into the technical side with a lot more gusto. And so you need to be curious about what else should I be doing, courageous enough to put down that familiar thing. That's going to be a little scary to put it down. And then you have to be caring to actually see how those things benefit the people around you.
that is a magnificent counterpoint, Albert. And I think it is the other side of the conversation. So we do see that all the time where people are leaning into the parts of business that are familiar to them and kind of avoiding those
Yeah.
other places. Maybe even not even walking into that part of the building or visiting those offices as part of the organization, because that's not a familiar place. And so we would definitely encourage what, where are you leaning? Are you spending your time directing the brass as a brass player?
I
Are you,
felt that
yeah,
when I mean, I came up through the percussion section. They don't have a lot of pianos in marching band, so I switched to drumline. And when I'm conducting a full ensemble, wind ensemble, that percussion section is getting extra attention from me. It's unavoidable. That's because that's where my heart is. That's where my background is, and I had to really consciously, purposefully say, "Wait a second, the clarinets are also having trouble."
Albert, question for you as we wrap up because we wanted to be a little bit shorter today on this one, but I would love to ask you, if I'm listening and I'm like, do I really want coaching from a musician? And obviously that's not the sum of your experience, right? This is one part of your story, it's one part of my story. What's something that music has added to your skill as a coach, as a leader that maybe you wouldn't have had if you hadn't have done music?
I think just a deep sense of beauty, a deep sense for. I mean, I'll often get a little bit choked up listening to people's stories when there's something really beautiful about it, and I think that sense of appreciation for something that's come together, all these moving pieces, all these different colors, and just kind of hits me at the heart level. I think that was really trained in my musical background. I don't resonate well with visual art. Um, Obviously, beauty and nature can strike me, but I think that sense of all these players or all the notes, coming together to form something beautiful transfers in a really abstract way to people's stories. How would you answer that same question, though? I feel it's only fair.
No, I think that's it. I want to also just for those who are listening, I've seen Albert at work. I've benefited from his coaching myself, and something that I would say is that he's somebody who absolutely can grab the complexity of a situation and find clarity and beauty in the middle of it, and had a profound impact on me and on others that he served as a coach. For me, honestly, if I go back to where I started, I think so much of my people skills were honed through musical environments where you're dealing with artists, where you're dealing with emotional people to create emotional product where technical expectations are also high. And
Yeah.
sometimes those little artists are seventh graders, who I dearly loved working with and have a fond spot for all the way till today, that age group. But uh, I think I honed a lot of my people leadership skills up against people who didn't care about what my title was. And I needed to find a way to get them on board and to work together towards something. And I think there's a thousand things, but I would say that is the one that screams out at the top of it is I think if you're familiar with Pat Lencioni's working genius model, I'm a galvanizer all the way. And I think so much of that was honed in music for me.
Mm,
We need to get these people working together. So let's do it.
yeah.
It either flourished and got trained there or it got built in there.
Yeah. If you're still listening to this after all of our sort of ranting and rabbit trails, just I want to just encourage you. We actually didn't really talk about our performance leadership model, Emma, at all, which is how do you, as your conductor of your team, get better results from your players? So Emma stands for expectations, motivations, measurements, and accountability. Those are your four sort of angles to look at it. You need all four, and then your team can start performing even better than they already do. They may be a high performing team already, and you're wondering how could they be even more? Emma is the way to do that. And I think we can end with this quote from in our article about this. We quote a conductor, Antal Dorati. I don't speak Hungarian, so I'm not sure I'm saying that right. But in his book, he describes the role of the conductor as Your job as a conductor, he says, is, quote, to make an orchestra wish to play well.
Wow.
And so as a leader, you are very much, you're using expectations, motivations, measurements, and accountability, but you're very much concerned about how does your team think about itself? Are they inspired? He quotes something in his book. He says he overheard a musician coming out of a concert that he had conducted, and the musician said, presumably a Hungarian, said, I, I'm ashamed I didn't play this well before. Somehow
Mm.
he has elevated to people's performance to a level that they themselves did not even think was possible. So that's what you can do if you use Emma. That's what you can do as the leader. That's why we have leaders and not just groups of people working together.
Eh, that's so lovely. I hesitate to say it, but I will just say a performance management system is not going to do that. That's something you do as a human being with other human beings. And that's another
That's right.
difference about the conductor. Yeah.
That's right.
Thank you,
That's
Albert.
right.
That's a beautiful quote.
Okay, well, we'll skip our normal ending question because we asked each other a different question today, and we'll see everybody next time. Thanks for
Everyone.
listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.